everyone. Lacey here, your mind-body nutrition coach. For those of you that this might be our first workshop together, I'm a registered dietitian, nutritionist by trade. I also teach yoga and it's Sister Science Ayurveda in groups and one-on-one. So this is one of 4 workshops that we'll be sharing throughout the weeks that you're here. This one is one of my favorite. If there was just one that we could talk about, this might be it in terms of where I feel we can make the most impact on our whole body health, our whole mind, body, spiritual health, honestly. And that's about digestion. We'll talk a lot about physical digestion and food, but also some mental digestion as well. And a big part of digestion is making this connection of the gut and the brain. So if anyone has questions, you want to talk more one-on-one, feel free to let the folks there know that you'd like to schedule a visit with me. We can do that virtually and dig a little bit deeper into your unique problems and help find some solutions to get those guts functioning. All right. So the first thing I want to share here, oops, to go back, is that Hippocrates, who is the father of medicine, of modern medicine, over 2,000 years ago, said that all disease begins in the gut. Also in Ayurveda, which is a sister science to yoga, about the science of life, over 5,000 years ago, said that we are what we digest, and that digestive fire is a big part of overall health, contributes to our overall health. And so we've known for quite some time that digestion is super important. However, modern research is just now catching up to that. So they're uncovering in research something called the gut-brain axis, and this is the nerve pathway that connects our digestive system, our gut, to our mental, emotional capabilities and how our brain functions. So really cool stuff happening. Also, our microbiome is being mapped currently, so that we can learn more about the role that microbes, bacteria, etc., the good kind, ideally, have to play in our digestive system. So we're going to talk more about that. We also know that an unhealthy gut contributes to a wide range of diseases, everything from diabetes, type 1 and type 2, obesity, rheumatoid arthritis, and other autoimmune conditions, also autism, mental health conditions like depression, anxiety, and more, as well as chronic fatigue, and so many other conditions are being traced back to our gut. So really cool, really interesting stuff. And that just breeds a lot of hope for the work that we're doing here on the nutrition front and ways that we can radically change our whole body health, our mind-body health, just by honing in on the foods that we're eating and how they're being digested. So a lot of researchers today believe that restoring our gut health will be one of the most important pieces of medicine in the 21st century. So what is the gut? You'll hear me refer to the gut or the digestive system interchangeably, but it's this long cylindrical tube extending from the mouth to the anus. So it's responsible for mechanical digestion or chewing in our mouth, chemical digestion or stomach acids in our stomach, absorption of foods and other items that we're consuming in our small intestines, and then reabsorption of things that our body wants to get rid of into the large intestines, and ultimately elimination or getting rid of waste through the colon, rectum, and anus. So I think it's really interesting and helpful to consider that the inside of this tube that we just described, It's actually on the outside of our body. So if you think about this inner lining of our digestive system being the same as our skin. I was going to say a second skin, but it's the same as our skin, only it lines the inside tube of our physical body. So we're kind of like a water hose or a donut, where you can see all the way through, and the exterior surface is even sometimes on the inside of the inside of the hole. So what are the pillars of gut health? Well, there are three that I like to talk about. One is the gut barrier, one is the gut flora, and the third is the gut-brain axis, or also called the second brain. So that first one, the gut barrier, is sometimes referred to as the gatekeeper. So it's what decides gets in or what stays out. And it's a thin mucosal lining. You can think of it again, just like the skin on the outside of our body, it's the skin on the inside. It has hair-like projections, just like we have hair on our skin. But these hair-like projections allow for absorption of whatever foods or beverages or substances that we're consuming, also eliminating what we don't want or no longer need. A really cool aspect of this gut barrier is that 90% of our immune system is a part of this lining. It's our body's first defense at keeping out things that we just don't want. So we come in contact with E. coli and salmonella and so many different, what we would call bad pathogens or bacteria all the time. But generally speaking, our immune system, our lining of our digestive system, just take them out. We don't even know. It's when we get a really intense exposure that's maybe overwhelming for the immune system that we start to see those symptoms. So, so much is done on our behalf that we aren't even aware of, because our immune system is part of this lining. So super cool. And anything that goes into our mouth and doesn't get digested or absorbed will ultimately just pass through the other end. So the primary function of our gut is to prevent foreign substances from entering the body, so getting into the bloodstream, that is. And then the secondary function is actually absorbing those nutrients from the foods that we eat. So first defense is our first priority is keeping us from getting sick, and the second priority is to absorb the nutrients from foods we're eating. So the gut barrier can also get damaged or disrupted, and that's what this slide is all about. And how does that happen? Well, it's mostly from our modern lifestyle. If you remember back, or if you've seen the very first or second workshop that we did together, I talked a lot about how our body is very ancient in terms of its design and the way that it's evolved along with nature. And in modern times, we have a lot of awesome modern conveniences, but they don't always sync up with how our bodies are designed to function. So certain medications, processed foods, drugs, alcohol, etc., can all cause damage to the lining of this intestine. What happens when it's damaged, it becomes permeable or leaky. And you may have heard this phrase, leaky gut syndrome. It was once kind of poo-pooed by the mainstream medical society, but now it's routinely adopted. Just about every physician you talk to should be aware of leaky gut syndrome and what can come of it. So if the gut barrier is damaged, remember this is the skin on the inside of our body, large food particles or other substances then can escape into the bloodstream. And that's not what we'd like to have happen. We'd like to break our food all the way down into microscopic pieces so that it just trickles into our bloodstream. In this scenario, it's you can envision large chunks of stuff getting in. And what happens is the immune system doesn't recognize these. It thinks that this food is a foreign invader, and so it mounts an immune response. And these attacks by the immune system are what ultimately lead to the development of a lot of the autoimmune diseases that you may have heard about or even experienced, like thyroiditis or thyroid problems, arthritis or achy joints, diabetes, type 1 or 2, childhood or adult, celiac disease, or gluten sensitivities are very common, as well as other food allergies and so many more things. So leading researchers in this field of gastroenterology, which is the study of the digestive system and the medical practice of helping people with digestive disorders, believe that leaky gut is a precondition to autoimmunity or different autoimmune diseases. So digestive symptoms and leaky gut to know about. The intestinal barrier determines how we tolerate these toxic substances. And so when the intestinal barrier is breached, whether it's by food, toxins, chemicals, this immune response can cause damage to the gut itself, but then also to our skeletal system, our bones, to our pancreas, or the organs that make other hormones for our body to digest food and maintain energy balance, and the kidneys, so ways that we get rid of our waste through urine, as well as our liver and our brain. So it's very important to note that you don't have to have gut symptoms of, stomach pains or constipation, diarrhea to have leaky gut, although those symptoms, if you have them, can point to leaky gut and or other problems. But digestive symptoms can certainly be a helpful clue that something isn't right. What leaky gut can manifest as in terms of symptoms are skin problems like eczema, psoriasis, or acne. These could be due not to something happening on our external skin, but more so that damage has occurred to the skin inside our digestive system, which is causing our body to show problems on our exterior skin. Also, heart problems, joint problems. We mentioned arthritis, mental illness. We talked about anxiety and depression being a part of the spectrum of illnesses that can manifest, as well as autism disorders, multiple sclerosis or MS, depression, and many more. So sometimes we refer to leaky gut as a symptom, as a disease of tired, fired, and wired, where we feel lethargic or depressed, we feel inflamed or irritable, or we feel anxious and restless. All of these symptoms can be traced back to a digestive system that's not functioning in the way that it's designed to. So the second pillar I want to touch on is the gut flora. And this is talking about the microbiota or the bacteria primarily that line that live on the lining of our digestive system. So it's just the same as a healthy garden that needs healthy soil. Our body needs a good balance of healthy flora and microbiota. And our gut is home to 100 trillion microorganisms, which is way more than I can even conceptualize in my mind. What helps me to rationalize this number is that it's 10 times more bacteria in our body than we have human cells. So you could say that we are more bacteria than we are human. And there's a lot of different ones. I think we're still learning what different species inhabit us, but there's over 1,000 known diverse species. We're just beginning to understand the extent of the gut flora's role in all of human health. So we know that it helps us to have regular bowel movements, to have good bacteria, but we're also learning so much more. There are even studies that are doing fecal transplants. I know, how gross does that sound, that we're taking poop from something else and putting it in someone else? And then we're seeing people lose weight faster, or people reverse disease and even more quickly than they could otherwise. I mean, we're just seeing a whole host of different facets of the bacteria that live inside of us than I know I could ever imagine. So it's pretty cool. The functions of the gut flora are One, obvious, we know that it promotes a normal gastrointestinal function. So it helps us to have a regular bowel movement of, at least one time a day of a regularly formed stool that's shaped in the size of a banana, but also provides protection from infection. It helps us to regulate our metabolism, and it comprises 75% of our immune system. So if 90% of our immune system is within the lining of our digestive tract, 75% of that is related to the bacteria, the balance of bacteria that colonize the lining. So dysregulated gut flora is linked to autism, depression, autoimmune conditions, and more. So what causes our gut flora, this bacteria, to get out of balance? Well, we know antibiotics have been prescribed. They've just been around, not nearly as long as we have. And so we're starting to see folks lessen up on the frequency of writing antibiotics and be a little bit more conservative because of the damage that they're causing, not just the bugs that make us sick, but also the bugs that help keep us well. So it's important to be really cautious about only using an antibiotic when we know we absolutely need it. It makes it so much more effective then. Prescription drugs, again, and just the different ways that they function to help us, they also can take a toll on our gut flora. So things like birth control, non-steroidal anti-inflammatories, as well as opiates and more, have been linked to less than optimal functioning of our gut flora. Also, with respect to our diet, we know just a modern diet, a standard American diet that's filled with refined carbohydrates, a lot of sugar, processed foods, etc., can take a toll on the gut bacteria as well. When we don't have enough fermentable fibers in our diet, or we're just not eating enough whole, real food from the earth, then there's not enough food for our good bacteria to feed on, as well as dietary toxins, though chemicals that are coming in through our food supply that haven't evolved along with us, like genetically modified foods and or the different chemicals that are sprayed on those foods in order to reduce weed growth or to keep pests off of these particular crops that are raised, can also cause some imbalance and destroy some of our gut flora, as well as industrial seed oils and hydrogenated fats. So basically all of our modern, commercially prepared foods are things that don't support a good balance of healthy gut bacteria, as well as whole, real, properly cooked and chewed foods do. So foods and environments with high exposures to pesticides and herbicides, the Environmental Working Group puts together a cool list called the Dirty Dozen, and these are the list of foods that are most heavily sprayed from year to year with pesticides, so you could check that out. And also of very important note is chronic stress. And so this isn't just like, I was, scared, startled by, my trip to the haunted house, but stressors that are just ever present and never seem to go away. Those stressors that cause our fight, flight, or freeze response to just permanently stay on. These can lead to damage of our gut bacteria as well. So along with chronic stress, chronic infections that are also a stress to our body, and having to take either antibiotics or steroids in order to treat those can also do a number on our gut bacteria. And then babies born to and breastfed from moms with poor gut flora also can develop conditions that are related to poor gut flora, like overweight and obesity, diabetes, skin issues, depression, and more. So I'll take just a second to also mention kind of what can we draw from this, the causes of unhealthy gut flora, and then what can we do about it. You might remember back in my second workshop that we did together on kind of rewilding our food supply. We also want to think about rewilding our body so that we're having more exposure to outdoors where these good bacteria are just naturally occurring. Get our hands in the dirt, whether that's gardening or working with animals. Having a pet can sometimes be helpful if you're thinking of having children or have children. We know that there's more of these good bacteria that can colonize us through a vaginal birth and breastfeeding, and just growing more and or sourcing locally and in season more of our foods that are sprayed, that aren't sprayed with herbicides and pesticides. So rewilding is the best way I can think to kind of summarize how we can improve our gut flora without even talking about supplements and foods that are targeted we could take. So the gut-brain axis is the third pillar that I like to talk about. This is sometimes called our second brain. Our gut is often referred to as our second brain. So we know the gut and the brain are connected via something called the vagus nerve. It's what provides us that gut instinct or that gut feeling or butterflies in our stomach when we're excited or nervous, or sick to our stomach when we're sad or upset. All of these signs are depicting the fact that our gut, our brain, and our moods are 1000% connected. So we know that decreased brain activity, so if we're experiencing stress or we're having an illness or there's some chronic toxic exposure or inflammation, can lead to decreased gut motility, or how our gut moves food through it, which also affects our pancreas and its ability to make enzymes and secrete them, as well as how our gallbladder functions. So in reverse, you could also say that as we focus on improving our gut motility, that our ability to regulate our brain activity and all therein our mood and our emotions, and then our actions can also be improved. So there's a bi-directional relationship here. That pathogen growth in the gut leads to decrease in beneficial bacteria and an increase in intestinal permeability. And this cycle can just perpetuate itself. So we can, because it's two directional, we can work on the gut, healing the gut, and then we see improvements in our psychological and mental processes. Just the same as we work on our mental and emotional processes and deregulate or downregulate all of that stress, we can start to see our gut naturally starting to repair itself. So it's a two-way street, which I think is really cool that we can target it from either or both directions and speed up the healing process even more. So to touch a little bit more on stress in the gut, whether it's financial, family, work, injury, sickness, worry, fear, pain, abuse, neglect, sadly, the list goes on. We are inundated with stress with our modern life. But it causes the body to perpetually secrete adrenaline, cortisol, and all of those other stress hormones that you might hear and talk about. And what happens is these hormones send messages to the body to either freeze, to fight, or to flee. And that's kind of differs based on our unique stress response. And when stress is chronic, these hormonal messages have a long-lasting effect, especially on the gut. So again, depending on our unique stress response, we might notice patterns of digestive issues, such as when the gut decreases its motility or how quickly it moves things through. Maybe we don't really feel hungry. Maybe we're experiencing constipation. That's related to the freeze response. Also, organs of the digestive system tend to overreact or secrete in excess, like make too much insulin. If you remember back from our blood sugar talk, we talked about reactive hypoglycemia. And this can instigate our stress response to fight. And our body to tell us to amp up. We need more and more of that blood sugar in our bloodstream because we're about to fight off this chronic stress. Or our gut gets rid of any contents that we might have in our digestive tract to help lighten us up in response to that flea feeling that some of us can get. So the freeze, fight, and flee stress responses can definitely be seen and observed in our physical body if we look at our digestive tract. So you might want to press pause here and journal a little bit. Think back to when you've experienced any of these symptoms, and or notice if you have a unique stress response and what that translates to in terms of where you might start to work on your digestive health. So digestive function will start to fail immediately after the brain starts to fail. So if our brain is shutting down or offline, then our digestive function does as well. I know a lot of us who deal with substance use have a lot of digestive issues. And so the upside to that is as we start to work on our mental processes and getting our emotions better regulated and our actions better regulated, then naturally our digestive system starts to improve as well. On the flip side, if we specifically start to improve our digestive function, then our mental health has no choice but to also improve because of that vagus nerve connection and the remyelination and improvements in the how energy and messaging flows between there. So stress on the brain equals stress in the gut, and stress in the gut results in stress symptoms in the brain. So the silver lining here is that as we heal the gut, we can heal the brain, we can also heal the entire body and ultimately calm the mind, giving us that ability to reconnect with our true purpose, our spirit, our true self, whatever it is that we've ultimately decided is our big picture take-home goal. So healing the gut and brain is very simple. But I don't want to make light of that because it's not always easy. We've got a lot to do in our life and not always a lot of time. And so our nutrition and our food and our digestion, I know, isn't always our priority. But I'm here to share with you that if you make it a priority, at some point you can forget about it because it just naturally starts to take care of itself. And a lot of these things will become second nature. So the first R of my 6R protocol I share with people is remove. Any stressor that could be causing digestive or psychological stresses. So these are all of those toxins that we talked about, whether it's from food or it's from drugs or it's from people who just aren't serving us. These are the things that we want to break up with and get rid of because they're not serving us any higher purpose. And then the second R is repair. So we want to start to repair any damage that could have occurred to the intestinal lining itself, but also our nervous tissue, also our skeletal tissue, also our brain tissue. You know, we want to do the work to repair and restore is the step 3 here. Any nutrients from foods and or supplements, if it's needed, that might be missing. So if our bones have suffered because our digestive system had holes in it, then we want to make sure that we're giving our body plenty of minerals in order to rebuild and repair our bones. At the same time, we're repairing the digestive lining. Step 4, we want to also think about re-inoculating our digestive system with the good bacteria. So we could do this with probiotic organisms through our food, ideally, foods like yogurt, sauerkraut, but also we could do that with supplements as well. And step 5, which is probably one of the hardest for most people, is relax. This goes also along with one of removing any people, places, or things that aren't serving us. We want to relax more, find more time to just be and to not be doing something. And this allows our brain to get out of that fight, flight, freeze mode that can get stuck in. So just start to pay attention and notice if that stress response stays kind of chronically turned on for you, and if there's a way through some of the strategies that you're probably learning in recovery to turn those chronic stressors or stress responses back off, like deep breathing, which is one of my favorite. I usually prescribe that before I even talk about meditation, but physical movement as well, whether it's walking or it's yoga or it's karate or it's shooting basketball. All of those things can be a physical way to relax, so to speak. Even if your body is still moving, we're just doing less with our mind. And lastly, reintroduce. So reintroducing anything that serves the higher you that might be missing from that remove phase. So it is my hope of any patient that I work with that if we had to remove a favorite food or a favorite pastime in the onset, that if my patient decides by the reintroducing phase that that is a food that they want to continue to have and it serves them, they feel good when they have it, that we reintroduce it here, because the stomach and the digestive system is now strong and resilient and can handle these things that it maybe couldn't in the beginning. So I'm a big fan of nobody who loves cake and ice cream should have to go without cake and ice cream, as long as they love it and it feels good when they have it. So in summary, things we can do are avoid processed foods and chemicals that we know irritate the gut. That goes along with the people, places, and things in terms of stress. Eat plenty of nutrient-dense foods that are easily digested. Consider foods, herbs, and supplements to repair that gut lining. Think about fermented foods like yogurt and sauerkraut, as well as probiotic supplements to re-inoculate, to treat any pathogens that might be present, to manage that mental digestion or stress by taking inventory of our triggers and anything in our life that no longer serves the higher self, that big self, our true purpose, what we really want with our life. And then work to eliminate aspects of life that can be stress inducing. So getting ahead of forecasting how something might turn into a stressful situation and learning to navigate a path around that before it even occurs. So I'll leave you with one last note here, that our bodies must be able to digest food to be our healthiest self, and our minds must be able to properly digest what we take in from our environment so that we're not reactive or impulsive, etc., in order to develop a healthy mental state. So I hope you guys have enjoyed this workshop. If you have any questions or you want to chat one-on-one, I am happy to schedule a session. Just reach out to the folks there and let them know that you'd like to meet with Lacey, the registered dietitian, nutrition coach, mind body coach, whatever you want to refer to me as. All right, so take care. Have a great rest of your day, and I hope wish you all well. Thanks so much.